What's up guys, it is that time for me to weigh in with my opinions and thoughts and review for Cyberpunk 2077. I'd just like to start this review off by saying that I was really looking forward to the game. I wanted to love it. I've been a big fan of CDProjektred ever since I played the first Witcher many moons ago, and then subsequently The Witcher 2 and of course The Witcher 3, which still is one of my top 3 games of all time, up there with the original Final Fantasy VII and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So just please bear that in mind when I give this review. However, it does not mean I'm going to be giving an overly positive review, unfortunately. I think the release of Cyberpunk 2077 has definitely been botched on all platforms, but especially on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And if you're going to tell me in the comments down below, well, you should play it on next-gen systems, well, it's still advertised and sold as a product on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, so it's unacceptable that it's released in a poor state there and they're charging you full price. It should have just been cancelled outright for the old-gen consoles. People would have been angry, but they would have been less angry than they are now with all the bugs and glitches. However, aside from that, I'm going to review the game as it is. I had no hard crashes, I had no game-breaking bugs, although I have seen them floating about on the internet. So just please bear in mind that I'm not a hater. I wanted to love the game, and this is just my thoughts and my critique on it. Cyberpunk 2077 takes place in 2077. Who'd have thought? The world is full of augmentations to the human body, and the story here focuses on the main character called V. Either that's male or female, you decide. For some reason you can even choose penis length, which is really odd. However, along with your friend Jackie, you would eventually undertake a mission to steal a very special chip, and you also end up getting mixed up within murder, family problems, and a character called Johnny Silverhand, who also has a dog in the fight with all of what's going on, and he kind of lives inside your head. I'd really tried to get into the story of Cyberpunk 2077, but unfortunately I just couldn't. In my opinion, the story should have been about just Johnny Silverhand. Playing as him and progressing through his story would have been a damn sight more interesting, to be honest. I found V to be a very meh character, very bland, very vanilla. There are some really good side characters like Jackie and Misty, and some other really cool side stories that you can partake in, and character stories. But it's kind of perplexing that the side stories and some of the other character stories and the gigs, which are random events spread out through the world, are a lot more interesting than the main missions. It's really odd, as The Witcher 3 main story and the missions there involved were just as good and just as well written as everything else, and it's kind of odd how here it just seems like it's run-of-the-mill main story style stuff, kind of like a Fallout, if you will, like just kind of there's a mission there, you're doing it. You know, I don't know what happened there. Maybe it's just me. I've seen loads of people that are really saying, oh, they took a lot from this and had a massive impact on them, and that's great if it did. That's awesome, and if it had an impact on you, please let me know down in the comments. Unfortunately, went straight over my head. I just thought, you know, when I completed the game, it was just, oh, is that it? Cyberpunk is at its core a first-person RPG in the same vein as Deus Ex, Fallout, Skyrim, etc. There are levels to gain and proficiency to gain in certain areas like guns and melee. Skill points can be slotted into different skill trees, and although they seem quite extensive and deep on the surface, and it looks like there's a lot of things to upgrade, it's really only skin deep, as a lot of the time you're just putting up to 3 skill points or more into boosting a percentage of certain attacks, or like an extended bleed effect from melee attacks. It's a little disappointing. They could have used it to be a bit more, I don't know, unlocking cooler abilities. The hacking ability you have in the game is pretty cool, using a RAM which you can upgrade, and you can also upgrade your yourself with augmentations, like having blades coming out your forearms and having loads of different cybernetic enhancements to your body. Quite a lot, which is really cool. It's just that none of it has any play in the main story whatsoever. There's no sort of like... Normally a game will urge you to do something and then it will introduce a game mechanic, and you can then use that said game mechanic if you would like to or not. The same with the crafting system in the game. It's there, you can use it, you can loot everything you see, but it just never ever shows you, teaches you or encourages you whatsoever to use the crafting, which is really, really odd. The gunplay is fine, it handles similarly to Fallout in that regard, which obviously isn't great, and the melee is nowhere near the level of like Skyrim's. I mean, the fact that you can use different types of katanas and knives is really, really cool, but you're just really flailing at the sword out in front of you and just chopping off limbs occasionally, and then getting the occasional kill animation. The weapons, from the handguns to shotguns, assault rifles and snipers, they all come in different shapes and sizes and styles, which all look really, really cool. The weapon design is pretty awesome, and they all have their varying stats and levels, which again is also pretty cool. And you can attach different sights and other attachments to the guns to make them, just a bit more impactful. There's plenty to do around Night City, from the gigs, which I mentioned earlier, which are just random events, which, well, not so much random, they're kind of there as question marks on your map, and you just go up to them, get a phone call, and then just take on whatever it is, whether that be rescuing somebody, taking out a gang, stopping a crime. I had a lot of fun doing that, just going from place to place. There's also car racing if you're into that, although the cars do not handle very well in Cyberpunk, I do have to say. You can build relationships with romantic interests and take on other side quests, so on and so forth, the pretty standard stuff that you do. You can also find some little random odd ones, like I came across a monk that his brother was captured because people were putting cybernetics into monks, which is apparently illegal within the world of Cyberpunk, and I had to put an end to that. It's just unfortunate that the world itself feels empty and bland, and that mission with the monk itself, because the AI, especially the enemy AI, is thick as shit, which you can imagine makes a lot of interaction and combat a bit wank. Sometimes there's not even a single NPC or car on the road for ages. It's just a desolate wasteland. It's almost like an atomic bomb's gone off and you're the only survivor for a lot of the time. And most of the dialogue with major NPCs comes in via the phone, which I feel is very ham-handed in storytelling. I prefer a bit more face-to-face stuff. I mean, that being said, most of the voice acting in the game is really, really good, and is better than the voice acting that CDProjektred had in The Witcher 3. But then The Witcher 3 had really good voice acting in anyway. They just reused a lot of character models and a lot of voice actors, which is fine, because CDProjektred are not a massive game studio like Rockstar, where they have like 1,000 different actors in, like they did with Red Dead 2. There is, however, the big downside with the game, and that it's very unfinished. Like I mentioned earlier, especially on the PS4 and Xbox One, and I know there are people on PC, apparently the PC is the way to go, and to be honest, a part of me thinks this should have just been PC only. I'll get a gaming PC one day and I would have played it one day, or even if they just released it on PC first and then a later release on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, that would have been more acceptable. I mean, they hid the footage of last gen and they essentially lied, which is this is the heartbreaking thing. It's just like the old Aliens Colonial Marines episode like nearly 10 years ago. It's just a blatant lie. They got it out. Yes, they made their money. There were refunds. There are good things in the game, like I mentioned, but unfortunately, nothing outstanding, so nothing really there to make you want to go out and buy this game now and just ignore the bugs and glitches. So, to sum it all up, Cyberpunk 2077 is a bit of a mess on the last gen hardware and is still buggy and glitchy on next gen and on PC. And like I said, I had no crashes on my playthrough, and I had a lot of texture pop in, invisible characters, and some characters having no legs, sometimes no mouths moving when NPCs are talking to me, and not to mention a ton of floating objects in cars, and just frame drops quite a lot. I did start I didn't get it at launch though. I started playing after the 1.05 patch, and then I continued playing throughout the 1.06 patch. They have got more coming out, so I will return and review it once it's had the 2 big patches out in January and February, and hopefully it will be a little bit better for me to get in there and actually just assess what it is. But aside from all the bugs and glitches, Cyberpunk still, unfortunately, is not as special as I and a lot of other people thought it was going to be. Its story is meh, the gameplay is pretty, run-of-the-mill, and the RPG elements are pretty cookie-cutter. The customization options is amazing, like I said, with all the augmentations and upgrades that you can apply to your body, and all the different clothes you can wear, the way you can customize yourself as you go into the game. You cannot customize your character's hair or anything like that, though. Whatever you select at the beginning of the game, that's it. There's no hairdressers or barber shop like there is in The Witcher, but hopefully they patch that kind of stuff in. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm such a Witcher super fan, it was my own fault for getting too overhyped for the game, but unfortunately, I mean, they done gone messed up here. They did. They lied, they pushed out a product that wasn't ready. You cannot blame fans, you cannot blame anybody else. I don't know who it is to blame for pushing this game out. I'm guessing shareholders, possibly, but this hopefully shows a lesson of how quickly a studio could fall from grace. Cyberpunk were held up there in high regard, and then they did this, and within a day, probably within the day of them releasing the game, they were in everybody's bad books. Apart from those, there seems to be a fan base that are absolutely loving the game and have put 200 hours in, and good for them. It took me 12 hours to beat the main story, and that's with doing some of the side quests that I had to do, basically, because at a certain point in the story you have to get money, a specific amount, to progress the story, and I didn't have that, so I had to do side stuff. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Cyberpunk, for me, I wanted it to come out, be what it looked like it was going to be, and it be a 9-10 out of 10 game. Unfortunately it isn't, and at the moment, in its current state, and with the fact that it's just a bit meh, I've got to give Cyberpunk 2077 a very, very reluctant 4 out of 10. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching this review. Please like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike it. Please tell me your experiences with Cyberpunk down in the comments, and subscribe if you'd like to follow me for more gaming reviews and other nonsense. I will be doing a giveaway which I will reveal soon when I reach 1,000 subscribers. The support and the views have been amazing thus far. Thank you very much. I'm just a simple gamer trying to make his way in the universe, reviewing things, and hopefully Cyberpunk gets tidied up to a point where it's completely playable by everybody, not just by a few people, and then we can move on to hopefully better pastures. But thank you guys very much for watching, and until next time.